Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are, and thank you for joining us today for the virtual roundtable discussion on EastMed, the trilateral agreement between Greece, Israel, Cyprus, and its role in regional energy security and economic cooperation. This event is organized by the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce and the Atlantic Council in cooperation with the Israel-American Chamber of Commerce and the American Chamber of Commerce in Cyprus. It is a great pleasure to be part of today's event, as we have been discussing with our partners at the Atlantic Council and our colleagues in the AmChams of Israel and Cyprus since before the outbreak of the pandemic. Energy has shaped the modern world as we know it. The current problem that the world faces is the transition from the use of heavily polluting fuels to more environmentally friendly sources of energy. Natural gas is key to making the transition smoother and cost-effective. Over the past decade, in the region of the East Mediterranean, the region has attracted attention by the hydrocarbons upstream industry with the discoveries in the Levantine Basin. The discoveries of recoverable gas reserves in the Zohr fields in Egypt, Leviathan in Israel, and Aphrodite in Cyprus brought the region in the spotlight of international exploration and production activity. These discoveries have contributed and will contribute even more to the economies of the corresponding countries, as well as these of Greece and perhaps Lebanon. The agreement for the construction of the EastMed pipeline that will transfer natural gas from the Levantine Basin through Greece to the rest of Europe is a project that brings together Israel, Cyprus, and Greece, and potentially more countries. The Eastern Mediterranean Security and Energy Partnership Act, signed by US President Trump in late 2019, and the subsequent authorization for the establishment of an Eastern Mediterranean Energy Center, shows the interest increase in the US for the region and the belief that energy can help in bridging the distance among countries. Lastly, the foundation in 2020 of the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum, which will be based in Egypt, with the participation of Cyprus, Egypt, Greece, Israel, Italy, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority, will contribute in the dialogue among the countries. The outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, with a subsequent drop in hydrocarbons demand, resulted in lower commodity prices, which in turn led to the rescheduling of some activities in the area. However, this does not in any way diminish or cancel the importance of energy as a catalyst for change in the region. Change that not only has to do with the energy sector, but other areas, such as trade and knowledge transfer in all sectors of business and science. And this is what we'll be discussing today. Last January, during the visit of the Greek Prime Minister to Washington, D.C., the Atlantic Council and the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce signed a partnership agreement for the support of the Council's Future Europe initiative and its work on securing US-Greece leadership in the energy transition. Today's event is a result of the excellent relationship that we have built with the Atlantic Council and, of course, our fellow AmChams of Cyprus and Israel, with which we have already signed an MOU in order to foster and enhance economic and business cooperation between our countries. On behalf of the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce, I am extremely thankful to all our partners for this event, as well as the great lineup of speakers who participate in today's high-level event. I wish everyone a constructive dialogue. And with that, I would like to pass the virtual floor to Ben Haddad, the Future Europe Initiative Director of the Atlantic Council. Ben, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikos. Good morning for those watching in the United States. Good afternoon in Greece and all over Europe. I'm Ben Haddad. I'm the director of the Future Europe Initiative at the Atlantic Council in Washington. It's my pleasure to join our friends and partners of the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce for this conversation today on EastMed, the trilateral partnership, and its role in energy security and economic cooperation in the age of COVID-19 and beyond. I'd like to thank Nikos Bakatseros, Elias Spirtounas, our friends at AmCham that we've been privileged to work with so closely in Athens and in Washington, and we hope to see you again in real life very soon. I'd also like to thank and greet Ambassador Pyatt, a longstanding friend of the Atlantic Council in Athens. The Atlantic Council is founded on the mission that the United States is stronger with its allies, that the transatlantic relationship is its best asset, especially in this time of crisis. As we face the health, economic, and geopolitical consequences of COVID-19, the relationship with the European Union is central to our work. This is why we launched this year our US-EU at 70 campaign to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the coal and steel community and look at how we can tackle future challenges together. Since the beginning of this crisis, the Atlantic Council has gone on offense, offering a bipartisan platform to global leaders, providing solutions for international cooperation, and staying close to our partners and our friends across the world. In this respect, our partnership with Greece is at the center of our work. In the last years, we have seen in Greece a key strategic ally of the United States in the Western Balkans, in promoting energy security in the Eastern Mediterranean with Cyprus and Israel, a strong ally within NATO and the European Union. It permeates the work of our different centers, and I'm particularly glad today that we're joined by the chairman of our Energy Center, Ambassador Morningstar. This big bet on Greece is why we were honored to host Prime Minister Mitsotakis and key members of his cabinet during his visit in Washington in January. When Prime Minister Mitsotakis spoke at the Atlantic Council, he spoke of a Greece that would punch above its weight on the world stage and provide solutions for others. We have seen this in the successful handling of the pandemic, and we see this today in Athens' leadership in the Mediterranean. This is why I'm very glad that we're having this conversation today with our friends all across the region. Thanks to all, and let me now turn to my colleague Katerina Soku, who will moderate the discussion today.
Okay, here we are. Greetings from me as well. Welcome to what I like to call our virtual 3+1 meeting. I'm Katerina Soku. I'm a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and the correspondent for Kathimerini and Sky TV in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, these days I'm confined, I'm isolated in Canada. I cannot return right now in the U.S. while all these events are taking place. So my heart goes to DC today. I know it doesn't beat traveling to the region, to any of the countries in the region, but I wish we all get an opportunity to do so again soon. For today, I promise we will compensate with the insights of some key policymakers and business leaders from the region and the US. The trilateral partnership between Greece, Israel, and Cyprus is fast developing on various different fronts, but energy has arguably been at the center of it, the initial driver, and still one of the most important aspects of the partnership. Indeed, the support of the US has contributed to what we now call 3+1, with high-level meetings taking place in the last few years throughout the region. At the same time, Congress has also passed the East Med Act, asking for American support, further American support for the trilateral partnership, especially on energy and defense, for these three stable, democratic, and predictable American allies in the region. At the same time, other partnerships are also being developed in the region, and we have, including with another trilateral with Greece, Cyprus, and Egypt, with the participation of France as well. The goal is to work together, the wider goal, and of course the East Med Gas Forum. And the goal is to work together for energy security and efficiency, not only for each individual country, but also for the region as a whole. This is the leap forward that some see parallels with the creation of the European coal and steel community. Indeed, Europe is also interested in an East Med energy collaboration, both as a potential source of gas for its own market, but also as a factor for economic development and security in the East Med region. So this is both a political and a geo-economic aspect to this dynamic. And today we will have the opportunity to discuss both, starting with our first roundtable and if we may please bring our first roundtable participant to the front. While I'm introducing them, we will have the Energy Minister of Israel, Dr. Yuval Steinitz, the Energy Minister of Greece, Kostis Hatzidakis, of Cyprus, George Lakotripis, together with the U.S. Ambassador to Greece, Jeffrey Payand, and of course, Ambassador Richard Morningstar from the Atlantic Council. He's the founder, as Ben said, of the Global Energy Center and a former U.S. Ambassador to Azerbaijan and the European Union. I should mention that Assistant Secretary Francis Fanon from the Bureau of Energy Resources at the State Department will also be joining us in a little while. But without further ado, let me begin our discussion with our speakers and kick off the conversation with a question first directed to the three ministers. How do you assess the development of the trilateral partnership on energy so far, and how does it fit specifically to your country's energy strategy? And if I may start with Dr. Steinitz.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you. And I'm very glad to be here with my two dear colleagues and friends from Cyprus and Greece, with Minister Hatzidakis and Minister Lakotripis. We are not only colleagues, but during the years we became also friends. I want to start by thanking the American Chamber of Commerce and the Atlantic Forum for organizing this meeting. And I want to tell you that our hearts and hopes is with the United States of America and its brave people. We know that it's a very difficult time with the pandemic in the United States and with the unrest of the last week. But I'm confident that, like always, the United States will prevail and will remain number one superpower and the real leader of the democratic world that we all so cherish. So first I'm confident I'm speaking also on behalf of my colleagues from Greece and Cyprus to share our sympathy and hope with the United States in those during these difficult days. With regard to our cooperation, really the three countries. We can speak on additional countries, of course, but let's focus on Cyprus, Greece, and Israel, because we actually started this regional cooperation that is now the circles are growing. Really, energy, as you mentioned, play a key role in it. Although we have a wonderful cooperation, a growing cooperation also in many other fields. The main two ones are security, counterterrorism, and also tourism. I think that this is a major step for Israel. It's extremely important. And let's first focus on the main issues that was already mentioned. Following the discoveries of very large, significant gas fields in the Eastern Mediterranean, in Israel, Cyprus, and also in Egypt. But Egypt is still need to consume most of its natural gas. It's a big country. So let's focus on Cyprus and Israel. It became evident for us that we will have to export most of the natural gas, since Israel and Cyprus are not very big countries. And therefore we joined together first with the Greeks and later on also with the Italians, and to a certain extent also with the European Union, to explore the possibility of exporting gas from the Eastern Mediterranean to the European Union. or to be more specific, from Israel and Cyprus to Greece, and through Greece to Italy, and through Greece and Italy to the rest of Europe. This looks very ambitious. You can do it either by LNG, and we are trying to export some LNG gas from Egypt. But the best way to do it, and also to ensure economic security and energy security for both sides, is through a pipeline, a cross-Mediterranean pipeline. And therefore, already 2.5 years ago, we began to discuss the East Med gas pipeline, or the cross-Mediterranean gas pipelines, which is going to be the longest and deepest underwater, undersea gas pipeline. The aim is to export a lot of gas from the Eastern Mediterranean to Europe, or as I put it, so far Europe relied mainly on two main sources of natural gas. The Northern Sea fields belong mainly to Norway, Holland, Britain, and Denmark, and from the east, with Russia, from Siberia. One of these main sources, the Northern Sea, is already on the verge of depletion. Depletion already started, and the idea is that if we will manage to construct this pipeline that will bridge the East Mediterranean to Central Europe, then the East Mediterranean will be the replacement of the Northern Sea. We will be able to replace what is missing in the supply from the Northern Sea. Of course, the United States itself is supplying some of the gap with LNG, but Europe is big, the consumption is enormous, and since despite the coronavirus crisis, it will be over in a few months, in 1 year time, it's clear that in the next 20 or 30 years, Europe will consume at least the same amount, maybe even more, of natural gas, and here we can collaborate together in order to bring natural gas to Europe and to be benefited economically, Israel and Cyprus, because of their resources. Greece maybe also, hopefully, will find some gas in the Mediterranean, but even as a transition country, as a country that get the gas and distribute it for the rest of Europe, this can be very beneficial to Greece as well. So this is, of course, the main focus. But we have other ideas of cooperating, like, for example, the electricity interconnected that we already discussed it in the past, Greece-Cyprus, Cyprus-Israel, that will enable Israel and Cyprus and also the island of Crete to be electricity connected to mainland Europe. This is also, in my view, is very important. Last but not least, it always just to have the United States on board. It's always helpful, and I'm very glad that this regional cooperation is so significantly supported by the United States, by the Chamber of Commerce, by the Energy, by the Secretary of the Energy, and by the Secretary of State from the United States. Thanks.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
Okay, excellent. Minister Hatzidakis, may I turn to you and ask you how you see this trilateral partnership fitting into the wider strategy of Greece on energy? Since he mentioned the aspiration of turning the East Med into a new Black Sea, how do you see this developing in the current environment and looking forward?
First of all, congratulations to the Greek-American Chamber of Commerce and to the Atlantic Council for taking today's initiative. I'm glad to participate in an interesting, I believe, dialogue among those participating. And I would like to say clearly that despite the obstacles we have to overcome due to the coronavirus crisis, I believe that all three countries, Israel, Cyprus, and Greece, but also the United States, of course, will overcome these obstacles and will proceed in a better era for all our citizens. The energy component is certainly at the core of our partnership among the three countries, Greece, Israel, and Cyprus, a partnership that dates back to 2011, 2012. And I believe, this is more than clear, that this partnership is centered on two flagship projects related to the electricity and gas interconnectivity. I refer obviously to the Euro-Asia interconnector, whose inclusion in the future PCI, projects of common interest, list of the European Union we continue to support. And I also refer to the most well-known project, the EastMed gas pipeline, whose intergovernmental agreement we signed on January the 2nd here in Athens, the three ministers participating in today's event. With regard to the EastMed gas pipeline, I would like to inform everybody watching this teleconference that the Greek Parliament ratified with an overwhelming majority, I would like to underline, this agreement a few weeks ago. As far as I know, the Cypriot cabinet also gave its approval, and I'm sure that after the reappointment of Minister Steinitz, our friend, and his team in the Energy Ministry of Israel, the ratification process will be completed in Israel as well very soon. I would like to focus on the environmental aspects of our cooperation, which is not so visible up to now. But I think that we have to examine this dimension as well, because climate change is present. We have to react, to take all the necessary measures, but also this agenda, the green agenda, is at one of the basic pillars of the policies of the European Union. And it has become evident in the recent announcements of the European Commission concerning the Recovery Fund. So, having said that, I believe that we have common interest in promoting now transition towards a lower greenhouse gas emissions energy mix. And I believe, of course, that this cooperation, the trilateral cooperation, can be extended to cover other sectors like biofuels, electric vehicles, electricity storage, energy efficiency, and renewable electricity. This is the future. We don't forget, of course, the natural gas. This will remain important in the coming years. It will be the transit fuel, certainly, That's why we fully support the EastMed gas pipeline. But I think that we have to examine this new dimension in our cooperation, the green energy dimension.
Thank you. Minister Lekotripis, your Greek colleague referred to the two flagship projects, the EastMed gas pipeline and the Eurasia interconnected, but also looking forward in the future, the green cooperation. How do you see the trilateral partnerships from Cyprus, and how does it fit in? What is the most important aspect of it for you?
Thank you very much, Katerina. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Let me also start by thanking the Greek ArmCham for putting this together with the Cypriot and the Israeli chambers, and also the Atlantic Council. It is a great opportunity to discuss these important matters, even during a period where we cannot meet in person, which of course I certainly will be able to do so very soon. Certainly, what I would describe, beyond what my colleagues have just mentioned, what I would describe the trilateral partnership between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus would be a model of countries working together in the region. And if you recall and look back at the history of how it all started, you could see that the trilateral partnership between Greece, Cyprus, and Israel is the one which laid the foundation for all the other partnerships that we are seeing in the region, be it other trilateral formations, or even in the case of multilateral partnerships, such as more recently the EastMed gas forum. And its fundamental basis is laid on the fact that here you have, as Katerina put it in her introduction, three countries with common values, democratic values, open countries, right? Who have now who have been sharing a common vision, especially since the discoveries in Tamar in 2009, which created, of course, a new impetus in the Eastern Mediterranean and its potential for gas. So several years down the line, we have plenty of discoveries, both in Israel, in Cyprus, in Egypt. We hope soon Greece. But the mere fact is that this partnership, and more recently the addition of the US as well, which I am sure we'll be discussing later on, has given us the platform where we can discuss common issues, common challenges, common solutions. Right? My colleagues mentioned the EastMed pipeline, of course, the Eurasia interconnector for electricity, which they are both backed up by the European Union very strongly, but also by the US. Hopefully, and I totally agree with Kostis about the transition towards a renewables future, despite the fact that we feel strongly about gas being a bridge fuel towards that end. And certainly, I'll also offer another dimension. The fact that we have this kind of relationship between the three countries, plus the support of the US, gives them a very strong confidence to companies to come and operate in the region and spend the millions and sometimes billions of dollars required either in the exploration phase or later in the exploitation phase. It gives them the confidence that countries can come together and sign agreements such as the EastMed intergovernmental agreement that was signed in Athens on January 2nd. And yes, Kostis is right, we approved it at the Council of Ministers, and it will be going into Parliament very soon for ratification. So it allows companies to come in the region with confidence, knowing that the relationship between the countries is at the best level it can be. And my relationship with Yuval, my relationship with Kostis is only a phone call away. So with that, thank you.
And to welcome as well, as I see him on our screen, Assistant Secretary Francis Fano from the Bureau of Energy Resources of the State Department. So I was turning to Ambassador Payat. Can we please bring him back to ask him? You have attributed the excellent state of U.S. relations with Greece during your tenure to an alignment of interests. And it's both the U.S. and Greek strategy to boost trilateral cooperation in the region. What do you see the benefits of such an approach for Greece generally, and more specifically on the energy sector?
Thanks, Katerina. Well, let me start, first of all, by congratulating both the Atlantic Council and AmCham for this event. And in the same way, as Ben said, the Atlantic Council has made a big bet on Greece. The United States has made a big bet on the 3+1 framework as a means to build stability and prosperity in a strategically dynamic region. We can see the challenge of great power rivalry returning to the region, even during this coronavirus period. I would just say a couple of quick points. Minister Hatzidakis spoke well to the benefits for Greece from this trilateral cooperation. For the United States, first of all, I should highlight that energy has been one of the real bright spots of our bilateral relationship for a few years now. We see Greece emerging as a major source of energy security across Southeastern Europe, with a whole variety of projects, from the expanded Revithousa terminal to the TAP pipeline to the IGB pipeline, now moving ahead to the floating regasification unit in Alexandroupoli. So our work together with Greece, Israel, and Cyprus brings together three democracies, three countries that enjoy a strong, dynamic relationship with the United States for us to work together on. That was Secretary Pompeo's message when he went to Jerusalem last spring to launch the 3+1 process with all three leaders. But it's not a coincidence, I think, that the first area to really deliver value in terms of that cooperation is energy. I'm sure Assistant Secretary Fannin will have more to say about this. It's great to see the three ministers. And of course, we had Frank in Athens in August for the first subgroup of the 3+1, which was our energy ministerial hosted by Minister Hatzidakis. We were very excited to do that. That was really one of the first foreign policy initiatives of the new government when it was elected in July. And I think it reflects how all of us are committed to continuing to work on these issues. I would just say, to finish up, as we look to the future, we are going to continue to invest in this 3+1 relationship. Frank will speak to what we're going to do on energy, but we see a lot of other areas where we can cooperate, including all of the work that's going to have to be done, both to deal with the consequences of the COVID pandemic and also to help stimulate growth across this wider region. And as you know, one of the bright spots for U.S.-Greece cooperation amid the difficulty of the pandemic has been what's been happening on technology and technology investment, where there's been some big investments by American giants like Applied Materials and Microsoft, even during the pandemic. So we see technology cooperation as a natural area of synergy between the three governments of the three and the United States. But we will also continue to work on the big strategic issues, including questions like how we stabilize the situation in the North Africa region, and how we work together to continue to advance our shared interest in European energy security. So we've got a lot to do, and I'm grateful for the effort that AmCham and the Atlantic Council are making to help inform those policy decisions.
Thank you, Ambassador. So, Secretary Fannin, if I may turn to you, please give us some bigger layout of the U.S. strategy in the region and how you see this developing, also taking into account the current market turbulence because of COVID-19. You've been a supporter of Greece joining. The U.S. has been of Greece joining the Three Seas initiatives. Do you still see value on that? Do you still see value on continuing exploration in the Eastern Mediterranean?
Yeah, thank you so much, Katerina and ministers. Jeff, it's so good to see all of you. We would much prefer to do these kind of things in person, but here we are. I guess Jeff spoke about the construct of the 3+1, and Secretary Pompeo's launching that with the respective heads of state, and I was honored to be with him in that. The State Department focuses with respect to energy. It's really where energy is a proxy for broader foreign policy issues, which is why the State Department, why Secretary Pompeo has from the U.S. side has been so engaged on this issue. As Jeff mentioned, the 3+1 construct is certainly broader than just energy, but we see in the Eastern Mediterranean region, energy is such an ability to bring states together to have practical outcomes. It creates really the evolution of a market where none existed before. Now, of course, U.S. companies were on the ground level, helping to facilitate this new and continue to be this new energy resource in the region. And so our view is where energy can serve as a broader bridge to provide resilience and create the appropriate measures to support broader political stability. So it's in that context that we approach energy. Minister Hatzidakis spoke, I saw a reference to the importance of environment and environmental quality issues. We also, in the energy pillar, we have sub-work groups where we're looking at the specific elements to help with some of these issues of common interest of all the states in the region. And one of those we kicked off, and Minister Lakatsoupis helped host the first of these technical work groups with all the countries present, was focused on environmental quality and the performance of the offshore development of the region. It's everyone's interest that this is to be done safely and at the highest levels. Renewables will be another component. Cyber security issues will be another component of these sub-work groups. So the product is a meaningful forum, but it's not just an area where we get together and have discussions. Things get very specific and have actionable outcomes. The point about the market I think that, yes, COVID has created an unprecedented economic, the global economy is uncharted territory here, and the energy industry and the energy markets, perhaps even chaotic territory. But the clouds of COVID will disperse, and we will get back to doing business. And natural gas is I heard someone refer to it as a bridge fuel. We look at it in the context of it is the optimal fuel source to integrate with existing and new technologies, because it can address the intermittency. And so we look at this evolution of holistic energy systems, of which the Eastern Mediterranean gas, U.S. gas, will create that foundation. So we're excited about the developments. And I still think the other outcomes of the COVID experience will be underscoring the criticality of having secure and resilient supply chains for everything, including energy. And the three countries participating in the trilateral, we of course are the +1, as was already stated, built on strong shared values, democratic principles, and focused on transparency and efficient market design. And that is a leading component of how we view our engagement in the region and around the world.
Thank you. And if I may bring into the discussion Ambassador Morningstar, I remember your lecture in Piraeus University last year when you mentioned that energy security translates to economic and political security. And this is certainly the aspiration in the East Med with the trilateral cooperation, no less. I'm wondering, how do you see the current market pressures, but also the geopolitical tensions in the region affecting this aspiration?
Well, thank you very much, Katerina. It is good to be with all of you. A lot of good friends on the screen right now. Frank, I'm happy to see, or not, I don't know if I'm happy to see, but in the last 5 days, you've shaved your beard since the last time we were on a panel together. Your point, Katerina, I think is really important, that we have to recognize that energy security relates directly to economic security as well as political security and stability. And Eastern Mediterranean resources are critical to those points and to those efforts, both within the region and with respect to Europe, which I think is very important for us to remember. I was also happy to hear all of the participants talking about the whole litany of projects that relate to the Eastern Mediterranean, all of which are important. Let me, though, focus for a couple of minutes, on what was, I guess, one of the prime purposes of this panel, to talk a little bit about the Israel-Cyprus Greece pipeline. And the way I see that from a reality standpoint is there's some not so good news, but there are also reasons to be optimistic. The pandemic is obviously, right now anyway, the elephant in the room. There are delays in projects all over the world as a result of the drop in demand, the drop in prices, and it's hard to believe that companies would be willing to start a project, at least right now. But there are reasons to be optimistic. First of all, I noted that my friend Minister Lakatripis in the last few days talked about, hey, remember, there's no final investment decision on this project until 2022. So let's do the work to prepare for that date now. And there's no reason why that can't take place. And one of the criticisms of the project has been, I've heard from companies, that from a commercial standpoint, it may not make sense. And what may make the most sense is gas going to Egypt and then coming back to countries like Greece, Cyprus, whatever, Europe, in the form of LNG. We'll see. But there are ways, I think, to deal with that. And that has to be one of the prime things that's worked on over the next few years. I think that US and EU involvement will be absolutely critical. The Eastern Mediterranean Act, Frank pointed out, is very, very important. But it may be that forms of government financing can help push a project like that across the goal line from Europe, but also there are new opportunities from the United States. With the monies that are now available for projects relating to European energy stability through the Development Finance Corporation, there's now something like $1 billion that's potentially available for investment. And that's not necessarily just direct investment. It can be also in the form of project finance guarantees, which allows that $1 billion to be stretched well beyond that amount. So those are issues I think that really ought to be looked at in connection with that project. As far as the overall geopolitical standpoint, from that standpoint that you asked about, Katerina, I think there are the obvious political obstacles, and I think that the United States and the EU have to work together to bring the parties together. Turkey hasn't been mentioned during this discussion, but hey, Turkey is there, and it seems to me that every effort that the US and the EU, working with its partners in the region, have to work towards some kind of reconciliation. I had always hoped, and looking at it from maybe more from an energy standpoint, that there could be some agreement between Cyprus and the northern sector with respect to how to share the energy benefits. Whether that comes first or an overall agreement comes first, we'll see. But we need to all work together to eliminate the political obstacles within the region. I've often said there have never been so many opportunities with so many obstacles, and we have to work together to remove those obstacles.
Thank you, Ambassador. And you've mentioned 2 points, and Turkey is certainly in the minds of the watchers of our webinar today, and it's also on my mind, and I'm going to ask about it. But first, I would like to give the opportunity to Dr. Steinitz to respond to to the estimate that as he mentioned earlier, that the East Med gas pipeline is still the best way to transport this gas. And I would like to ask you more specifically, as a lot of analysts actually are wondering whether the window of opportunity for this project to make commercial sense is closing because of the developments of the last few months.
Thank you, Katerina. I will refer to this topic, but I would like also to refer to two other topics that were raised by my colleagues and the other participants. So first, with regard to the East Med, to the cross-Mediterranean gas pipeline, or East Med, as many people named it. Of course, now it's a difficult time. Gas prices, oil prices, energy prices went down following the coronavirus crisis, and actually it started even a little bit before. But when we are speaking about such projects in the energy sector, in the gas sector, we don't speak about the current situation, because, as was mentioned already, just to get a final investment decision, it will take another year or two. And then to construct the pipeline, it will take another between approximately 4 or 5 years. So, and the return on such investment will take almost a decade. So we are speaking here, we have to look forward for between 20 to 30 years, at least 20 years, and prices are going up and down, prices of gas, but the demand is there. The demand in Europe is huge, and I'm confident that this project will be viable. Of course, there are some times that facts are changing. Look, you have some pipes going to Europe from Siberia and also across the Caspian Sea, and from Azerbaijan through Turkey and through the Aegean Sea. And I think that the East Med should be a very promising project, not just because of the amount of gas from the producers and from the market, from the demand, but also because Europe can rely on Israel and Cyprus and on the East Med gas pipeline, maybe even more than on other way of supplying. First, because we are speaking on democracies. Israel, Cyprus, and Greece are all three Western-style democracies, very stable countries that can be trusted. All are members of the OECD, and therefore, to have such a supply from such stable democracies is always, I think, also from European point of view, there is some advantage here. Secondly, such an undersea, a deep undersea pipeline will be maybe the most secure pipeline in the world. Nobody can reach it 2 kilometers below sea level. Nobody can sabotage it. No terrorist, no country. Maybe only a superpower can locate the pipe and do something against it, but this will be also a difficult mission even to a superpower. So the pipeline will be very secure. Israel and Cyprus as a source, and Greece and hopefully Italy. Italy actually was on board, and we have to bring it back on board of this project. And I believe that this is possible. This will become possible soon. This is the most secure pipeline supply, not LNG, but pipeline supply of gas that Europe can dream of. And in all my talks with the European previous energy commissioner, Mr. Cañete, he mentioned that they are vehemently supportive of this project, not just because of the amount of gas, but because of not just the value of gas, but also the value of the countries involved, the democratic values and the security. So I'm confident that this project should take place, not without difficulties, of course. We will have to overcome some difficulties. We already overcome many difficulties, but this is not a dream. This can become a reality. Depend on us. Speaking about energy security that was mentioned already here, also during in light of the coronavirus crisis, I want to mention another dimension, and this is, of course, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a very crucial element of energy security. You know, there were many reports and rumors about things that were going on in Israel and in the Middle East recently. I won't comment on those reports, but I can say that it's re-emphasized the importance of cybersecurity. Here in Israel, we have built the first of its kind cybersecurity headquarters and center only for the energy sector. I mean, we have, of course, the nation, the country, a cybersecurity cert, which is very good, but we already established 3 years ago a special headquarters only for the energy sector in Israel to defend the energy sector, our gas platforms, pipelines, power stations, substations, the electricity grid, refineries, and so on and so forth, because we believe that this needs a special expertise and a special kind of defense. And probably you won't be surprised, Katerina, if the only leaders from abroad that were invited to visit this a unique cybersecurity center in Beersheba for the energy sector were the leaders of the countries participating in this meeting. The president and prime ministers of Greece and Cyprus, and the 2 energy secretaries of United States already visited as well. Secretary Rick Perry, former Secretary Rick Perry, and Secretary Dan Borlett. He visited still when he was deputy secretary for the energy. And of course, we are ready to share. I just, 1 week ago, I spoke with the American Secretary of State, Dan Borlett, and on the need to accelerate our cybersecurity cooperation to do with the energy sector, specifically with the energy sector. And we will do it with the United States and, of course, with my 2 colleagues from with Greece and Cyprus. Speaking about energy security, this is an important factor, and it's going to be more and more crucial than before to have a very sophisticated, elaborated cyber defense. I want to touch another issue that was touched by our Greek colleague, by Kostis Hadjidakis, previously, about the gas as a transition fuel or transition source of energy, because in the future it should be only renewables and green. And I want to tell you that just yesterday I announced my plans since we have a new government, and I became again the Minister of Energy. Yesterday I announced some plans for the new term and for the next 10 years. And what I mainly focused on is that I presented the plans to make Israel in 2030, 10 years from now, the energy mix will be 70% natural gas and 30% solar energy. This will be the mix in order to get 30% solar energy, actually we have to produce about 100% of our electricity from the sun in the afternoon. If we will manage to be able to produce 100% of electricity, this will amount to 30% around the year, around all hours. This demand a huge investment. We are going to invest about $20 billion. It's quite a lot to such a little country in solar systems and energy storage in order to enable it in 10 years. This will make Israel a leader in solar energy. The European Union is going to be on 9%. We are going to be on 30% in 10 years from now. But still, even after 2030, if there will be no major breakthroughs in energy storage, if there will be some improvement, but generally speaking, it will be like today, we won't be able to, since in our case, it's only solar, we don't have, we have very little wind and no hydroelectrics or other means, we will be relying on natural gas also beyond 2030 and 2040. And this will still enable us to reduce pollution from the energy sector by 94%. I mean, if I compare to 2015, when I was first appointed Minister of Energy, to 2030, in those 15 years, we will go down by 94 or 95% in air pollution in Israel, and more than 50% in CO2 emission, in carbon emission per capita. This is significant. We will do it with natural gas and solar system, not just renewables.
Thank you very much. And I'm noting the news here, but also I'm noting the time, and I want to have an opportunity. I'm conscious of everyone's time, and I want to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about Turkey as well, as it was already mentioned. Let me first turn to Secretary Fano and then ask him, you in the United States, you have expressed your concern about Turkey's activities in Cyprus, and but I wanted to also ask you, what is your reaction to the official publication in Turkey of Turkish Petroleum's application for exploration permits in areas that actually touch upon the Greek continental shelf?
Yeah, thank you. Our position remains consistent. First, as I go back to my earlier comments, how the United States views the region as one that should be open, rule of law respected, and allow for an opportunity for, in the context of energy, for there to be transparent, efficient markets so that energy can be developed and moved, transported, and consumed to all who need it. So in terms of the specific issue of this MOU, I mean, firstly, we also have been very consistent in calling to stop all provocative actions that could undermine the investment confidence that we've spoken about earlier, and also could undermine and affect political stability in the region. We don't comment, as a matter of course, on countries' maritime boundaries, but I would recognize that an MOU cannot, as a legal matter, affect the rights of or obligations of third states such as Greece. The international law, the Convention on the Law of the Sea, generally recognizes that islands, they affect the rights and obligations. Well, islands generally have an EEZ, and they have a continental shelf, just as any other land territory. And we can't comment on future actions of what may or may not happen. We've certainly read reporting. And again, we just encourage that states stop provocative action, stop provocative behavior, and stop provocative statements, and really look at the opportunities that's before them. And we want, and the U.S. will continue to be a constructive part in the development of the region.
This ISMED cooperation is not against Turkey, but also noting that Turkey needs to come to the table in respect of international law. How do you view the latest move from Turkey? Is it like some climax that it concerns you greatly? Do you see it change in the climax that Turkey is making in the region?
Yeah, the latest statements. I mean, like I said, an MOU doesn't abrogate the rights of states, of third-party states. I mean, they're recognized. Their legal status is recognized. There's not an equivalency here. I traveled actually to both Istanbul and Ankara to have some discussions. I mean, Turkey, it's an important country. We want to continue to have Turkey looking westward and being play a constructive role in the international community more broadly, in Europe and in the Eastern Mediterranean region. So we'll continue those engagements and continue to encourage that parties come with a constructive element. Provocative actions, provocative statements, just undermines confidence, and it doesn't even advance their own agenda. So let's be constructive here. And I'm happy to go back to Ankara if that would be welcome.
Minister Hatzidakis, if I may have your take, please.
Yeah, the Greek government has a decisive stance towards Turkey without being provocative. We are a modern European state, and this is our political behavior towards Turkey. But as you know, it takes two to tango. We'll continue having the same approach, and we hope that on the other side of the Aegean, a new spirit will prevail. To be more specific as regards our position, I would like to refer to the two recent examples. One concerning today's discussion. 1 month before the signature ceremony here in Athens concerning the East Med gas pipeline, you all know that Mr. Erdogan made a provocative statement saying more or less that the three countries do not have the right to proceed to the signature. We signed the intergovernmental agreement because we believe that this pipeline, the East Med pipeline, is not against the interest of any other country. East Med gas pipeline serves the interest of all three countries involved, and it is a project of cooperation and peace. And this is a message Turkey must understand. Another example is the stance, the position of the Greek government in the river Evros when thousands of immigrants tried to invade the Greek borders, encouraged in practice by the Turkish government. We defended our borders, and what we have done is, in our view, self-evident. This is our position. We are working to enhance our relations with our neighbors because we believe that only through peace both Greece and Turkey can prosper. But on the other hand, we have our national sovereignty and our national pride, and we have, as I said, to defend the interests of our country. And this is clear.
Minister Lakotripis, if I may turn to you for a chance to also respond to this question, as Cyprus has also seen illegal drilling at its EEZ, and it has complicated your strategy in exploration on the island. For your take.
Thank you, Katerina. Indeed, this is not something new, and this behavior by Turkey not something new for Cyprus. It's been going on for a while, and as a matter of fact, as we are speaking, Turkey is attempting a sixth drill inside Cyprus's exclusive economic zone. And I would like to remind everyone at this point that on repeated occasions, the Cyprus government, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cyprus has invited Turkey to the table to delineate, just like it's common with all neighbors, right? So any argument to say that all of these trilaterals or multilateral formations are going against Turkey, allow me to say it's absolutely rubbish. So Cyprus has invited Turkey to either come to the negotiating table and negotiate, or indeed go to the International Court of Justice to resolve our differences, because Cyprus feels very confident about its legal case, and Frank mentioned its basis a little bit earlier, which is of course the United Nations law for the Convention of the Sea, Article 121, right, which determines what is the regime of islands with regards to exclusive economic zone. And I've heard a lot of Turkish officials talk about that they are going about with international law and that they're respecting it. Well, it would be nice if they can give us what article are they referring to, what kind of agreement are they talking about. We are referring to, among others, UNCLOS Article 121, which is one of the most important ones. And of course, the counter argument with Turkey, and anyone will tell you, they have not ratified UNCLOS. But so did the United States. The United States has not ratified UNCLOS, but respects it fully, right? And not to mention that it has become now customary law. I heard Ambassador Morningstar earlier talk about how do we share the resources on the island, and our response to that is pretty clear and pretty firm. There are a lot of other issues that need to be resolved first before we go down that route. First and foremost, there's not going to be any revenue from hydrocarbons for a few years down the road, right? And two, the Cyprus Parliament has enacted into law a proposal by government to create a sovereign wealth fund where no one can touch any revenues from hydrocarbons for any foreseeable future. It will all be safe for future generations, which, mind you, should includes also the Turkish Cypriots. So there is no excuse to say how do we share resources. On the contrary, we say let's focus on resolving the Cyprus problem. Let's focus on resolving on having a delineation agreement with Turkey, because at the end of the day, Katerina, what kind of seas are we talking about? What kind of resources? What kind of revenues are we talking about? Are we talking about the EEZ, which Turkey claims on its own and basically reduces Cyprus's EEZ by 69%? Or are we talking about the internationally recognized exclusive economic zone, which we have allocated also blocks, and we're doing exploration and to international companies through international tenders? So the question of Turkey is coming over and over again. I made earlier the comparison with the US, and allow me to say that the fundamental difference is that the US is a true democratic power, confident about itself and its role in the world. And this is why we are very glad to participate in the 3+1 activities which are being planned.
Thank you very much, and I'm conscious of your time. This conversation could continue for a long time still. I just want to give an opportunity for anyone who wants to make a comment before we close, because we need to be aware of the second panel that is already waiting for our for the next session. Yes, Minister Hatzidakis.
That I'm extremely glad that the Greek-American relations have been strengthened, and the Greek government is going to work towards enhancing further these relations. I'm also glad that the US is supporting, firmly supports very important energy projects in Greece, like IGB, the Greece-Bulgarian interconnector, the FSRU project in Alexandroupolis, strongly supported also by the Greek government. And I'm sure that the US is supporting this common project, the East Med gas pipeline, common project of Israel, Cyprus, and Greece. And I would like also to say that given the good personal relations among Yuval, George, and me, all three of us are going to continue cooperating in other fields as well. And I look forward to organizing the 3+1 meeting with Mr. Fannon very soon, either virtually or as we had our previous meeting here in Athens last August. Thank you, Katerina.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm keeping this commitment, and I'm also keeping the offer for another visit to Ankara from Mr. Fannon.
Katerina, can I just to make a quick point before?
Certainly,
just to note, first of all, obviously endorsing completely Minister Hatzidakis' strong statement on the status of U.S.-Greece relations. But I would also emphasize how important it is that the whole of the U.S. government is now looking at the Eastern Mediterranean systematically and through the lens of this 3+1 construct. Frank and the ENR Bureau have been a big part of this, but it's really a whole of government effort. And I should also single out the leadership of Senator Menendez and Senator Rubio in pushing ahead the East Med Act, which writes the administration's policy into congressional law. So we really, I think we have built a new construct here, and I think it's terrific that AmCham and Atlantic Council are helping to reinforce that. So thank you.
It's great to end on that note, Ambassador. Thank you all very much. Yes, Dr. Stein.
Yeah, I just want to thank you and to thank my colleagues. This partnership is extremely important for us and for the region. Actually, I want to tell you that since a new government was constructed in Israel, established in Israel just 2 weeks ago, I insisted on remain energy minister and not taking other maybe portfolios to do with education, with higher education and things like that. And one of my the reason I have done so was, and I told also the Prime Minister, that I'm so glad and so happy about this regional relations and cooperation in general in the region, but also specifically with my colleagues from Greece and Cyprus. I told the Prime Minister it's important for me to proceed in order to keep this spirit of cooperation among us. I want also to mention that I have had the privilege to join the Prime Minister Netanyahu, for almost 4 hours meeting with Secretary Pompeo just 2 weeks ago when he arrived to Israel. Actually, it was the only international visit in Israel for I think 2 months following the coronavirus. Of course, it was extremely important visit. We discussed everything. I'm unable to elaborate, but I think again that this partnership here in the region with the backing and support and involvement of the United States, this is crucial for regional security and prosperity. So I want to thank my dear colleagues, Kostis and George, and also all the American participants.
Thank you very much. Thank you for participating, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hopefully
Thank
we will
you,
be able
Thank you, everyone.
to meet really together as soon as possible.
We'll take a short break and we'll be right back in a couple of minutes until so that the next panel can come into our screens. Thank you. Hello, I think we're live again, and please excuse our short delay because of the ministerial panel. And without further ado, I would like to take the discussion to the business sector and the opportunities that are created for businesses of the region because of the trilateral partnership, or in the context of it. And I would like to welcome the Noble Energy Director for Israel, Mr. Vinny Zomer, from the DEPA, Mr. Dimitris Manolis, the Head of International Projects and Deputy Development Director for IGI Poseidon, which has a role, of course, in the EastMed gas pipeline, and also the CEO of Energean and company with a big presence throughout the Eastern Mediterranean, Mr. Mathios Rivas, and also from SIGAS in Cyprus, Mr. Simeon Kassianidis, the Chairman and CEO. So, gentlemen, if I may start with asking your perspective on the opportunities that the closer cooperation and partnership between Greece, Cyprus, and Israel has created for your companies in the region, to the extent that it has, and how you see it moving forward, where you would like it to move next, and how it may facilitate with your work. And if I may start with Mr. Vinny Zomer, please.
Yes, well, thank you, Atlantic Council and the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce, the AmCham in Cyprus, and especially the Israel-America Chamber, whose board I sit on, and do great work here. So thank you all for allowing us this opportunity. I would and thank you for your question. Look, there's as Noble Energy is really a company operating not just in Israel but in Cyprus as well, in Egypt and in Jordan. I think this regional cooperation, of which really began with these three countries, but has since expanded, has really provided the impetus for our regional opportunities here. I see that as well, and I would be remiss if I also didn't mention the U.S. government and the role that they play. I think what we're doing here through the cooperation of these countries, Israel, Cyprus, and Greece, as well as, if you look more broadly, even the Eastern Med Gas Forum and the exports to Egypt and to Jordan, really furthers. You have this opportunity where our commercial opportunities really dovetail with U.S. and Western interests in the region, and so without that and the dialogue, and without these cooperation between the countries, that would not be happening. And so we've seen really tremendous opportunity here.
Okay, and if I may take this question to Mr. Manolis from DEPA for his perspective.
Good afternoon to all, and thank you very much for the kind invitation. Unfortunately, our CEO, Mr. Xifaras, who was not, due to an unforeseen event, is not able to attend this round table. So allow me to start by mentioning the trilateral agreement that was signed in the 2nd of January of this year, which we believe that sends a clear message of support for the EastMed project. We believe that the preparation and signing of this agreement follows the completion of the pre-FEED studies that were supported by the European Union, and confirm that the EastMed project is, out of any doubt, technically feasible, economically viable, and competitive, and complementary with any other alternative export option of gas of the region. This agreement is not just does not represent a symbolic value. It is a huge encouragement to the project promoter, the IGI Poseidon company, a joint venture between DEPA and the Italian Edison, to go ahead with the next phase of the EastMed's development. Because the parties will be supporting the promoters' efforts to achieve not only the funding, permitting, and effective regulatory system necessary for the further development of the project, up to the final investment decision stage that we foresee that can happen in 2 to 3 years. So we're extremely pleased that on the May 14th and on May the 28th, the Greek Parliament and the Cypriot government cabinet respectively ratified the EastMed project intergovernmental agreement. I should add that on May the 5th, very recently, the Greek Parliament recognized the EastMed Poseidon projects as projects of national importance and of public interest for Greece. So, in other words, the Parliament recognized the value of the project that will greatly help the region and promote Greece's role as a major energy trader in the southern Mediterranean region and the Balkans. IGI Poseidon and its shareholders acknowledge the need to implement a rapid approach and complete the activities of the EastMed project in accordance with the terms of the financial support agreement with the European Union, which is financing 50% of the total cost of this development phase of the project, aiming to meet the conditions required for starting its construction in a period of 2 to 3 years. At the same time, the company's efforts for the active participation of stakeholders in the development and implementation of the project were intensified. And in this context, we have signed agreements with Energean and INGL and the Israeli TSO and TMNG. Now, in the past 9 months, we have completed all the evaluations for all the international tenders that were launched by the company and related to the studies that the pipeline is now needing for reaching FID in due time. So, in fact, now our company, Poseidon Company, has awarded very recently the detailed marine survey and the FEED contracts for the offshore sections, the onshore sections, and the above-ground installations, the facilities of the project. Meanwhile, it's ready now to award the ASA studies for the offshore and the onshore sections of the project. Regarding cooperation, as you all know, on January the 2nd, DEPA, in its commercial vest, has signed a declaration of intent with Energean, the first agreement for the commercial exploitation of the EastMed pipeline. With this agreement, we have taken a decisive step to ensure trade viability and consequently the implementation of the project. So, DEPA has been steadily expanding its commercial activities in cooperation with international partners and continues to promote infrastructure that guarantee the diversification of resources and energy security for both Greece and Europe. And this is done by systematically strengthening its international presence. Our company is now in a position to exploit developments in the Eastern Mediterranean region.
Since Mr. Manolis already mentioned the letter of intent that is signed, and obviously I believe in the course of this year you will have presence in 8 countries in the Mediterranean. So I'm wondering how important is the trilateral partnership and one of its flagship projects, the Eastern Mediterranean gas pipeline, for your work and your strategy in the region?
Well, thank you very much first for the invitation. Thank you for this wonderful event. And I think we've discussed a lot and we heard a lot by the ministers about the pipeline, and the position that Mr. Manolis made very clear is the progress that has been made in this great project. I think things are very simple here. In order for this pipeline to become commercially viable, we need to have sufficient resources of gas on the supply side and a competitive gas price for the users on the other end. So with the agreement that we've signed with DEPA, it's an agreement for a supply of 2 BCM a year. I think that gives a very clear signal that there is enough gas on the supply side, and there's also a competitive price to be landed on the Greek grid or further on to Europe. So when we came into Israel, gas prices were around about $6 an MMBTU. And with the investment that we're making right now in the Karish Tanin project that we're developing, it's a $1.7 billion investment, which is ongoing at the moment. And the new gas that we have discovered in Karish North, we're sitting at the moment on about 100 BCM of proven gas in Israel. 65% of that is already committed to the Israeli market. The balance is available to serve the contract or the letter of intent we have with DEPA, and also the proposal that we made to supply gas to Cyprus. So gas is available. Gas price could be very competitive, depending, of course, on the final price of the project. And the trilateral agreement is extremely important because that underpins a project with 3 stable governments, as we heard before from the ministers, underpinning a very important project for the security of supply of Europe. And a lot of people are asking, why is it competitive when gas prices have collapsed in today's environment? Well, I fully agree with Minister Steinitz and his position that these are not projects that we look at from what is happening today. These are long-term projects, and we have to take a long-term perspective that enhances the security of supply, the competition in the countries that this pipeline will go through, and will bring gas from the EastMed into hopefully Cyprus and the rest of Europe. So huge importance to have the government supporting, huge importance to have the European Union supporting financially this project, huge importance to have the US backing this very important project to bring the gas into Europe.
I turn to Mr. Kassianidis to ask his take on the EastMed gas pipeline, and especially how long, in regards to how long you expect as well that it may take for the halt of the Cyprus exploration or the gas development to resume, and whether this affects at all the pipeline commercial feasibility. Please unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank the organizers for giving us the opportunity to present Cyprus's plans in this area. I think on the whole, the play, I think is generally recognized, and I think it's accepted that the development of the East Mediterranean hydrocarbons industry is a regional play. And as such, let's say, Cyprus and all its constituents, let's say, including DEPA and including Gas, including ETIFA and so forth, all have a role to play and they're part of it. So with respect to the timing and the delays in terms of the EastMed pipeline, it has been discussed again before, and before with the ministers talking, it was clearly stated that things take the time. Our industry does take its time. It's known for its cyclic behavior and changing of prices and so forth. Any decision on the EastMed pipeline would be in 2 years' time, so there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done. And frankly, in terms of, from a technical perspective, the 2 years period, let's say, can only lead to maybe an improvement of the technical viability of the project, because we will have with the drivers of wanting to make it happen further technological development that will actually bring down the cost and thus make it more viable. With respect to Cyprus and its part in it, I think Cyprus is unavoidably in a central location for this. Cyprus is looking very supportive in this exercise. It is part of the East Gas Forum. We have joined as Gas the technical part of it in order to cooperate in this fall period. And we are following a very structured and organized step-by-step plan in order to achieve first the methanization of the country, because Cyprus right now still depends on liquid fuels, and after 10 years of efforts, let's say, we are very near now to be able to achieve that task. And we have always been open to, when the time is right, to explore different cooperations, like when we had discussed in the past, actually in person with Mathios Rigas in my office, but we actually have to follow certain timelines for this to be achieved. So I think this period, the most important part will be to reach a stability for our industry, which is still a little bit in terms of uncertainty. When stability happens, then the regional cooperation can provide, let's say, a lot of possibilities for growth. Already we have a lot of projects from the region that want to come and take advantage of Cyprus's possibility, whether that is for supply, energy security for countries, or for energy security, let's say, regional. And as well, let's say, we have already worked together with DEPA in a co-funded European Union project that looks at the holistic use of natural gas in Cyprus, and we are in discussions with them for other type of projects as well. The same kind of discussions we've had with counterparties in Israel as well. So I think, and the Egypt, I might add as well. So I think the whole concept of this last few months of upsetting of the prices, of the collapse of the hydrocarbons prices and so forth, is something that if we look at it with the depth of time that this industry takes, the years for any final investment decision, the years for, let's say, building and construction, we might see that we will be ready. I think the objective would be for everyone to be ready to capture the opportunity that comes following that. Your mic is muted.
Thank you. So if I may go back to Mr. Manolis to ask about his take at DEPA about potential delays in the exploration work in Greece, and how that might affect the East Med pipeline. And if I may just add one more question here, how about Italy's participation in the project? Is it like considered substantial, like a necessary condition for the success of the project?
Well, I will start from the easy part, the first one. So, how can prices affect? I mean, it has been mentioned. Mr. Rigas has mentioned before by Minister Steinitz and by others. These are long-run projects. Just to make a small recall on what we have been doing all these years. I mean, conceptually, we have started the project DEPA in 2012 with the support. Then in 2014, they has joined us in the East Med project, also the Italian Edison. So, talking about just making a link to the participation of an Italian company in the project. So we have started first of all from feasibility, performing all the necessary engineering studies, making a competitiveness assessment with other expert options. We have also looked around into the market, meaning the destination market that would be Greece and Central Europe, Italy and Central Europe, but also we have assessed the market of constructors and of materials that are needed, of pipes, for example, that are needed for constructing, for building this pipeline. And thanks for that, we had an initial support from the European Union that amounted at 2 million euros at that time. And we have successfully completed this phase, coming to the results that I have mentioned before. Now, so the project is technically feasible, competitive, and economically viable. Now we have passed, starting from 2018, when we have signed the second grant agreement with the European Union, the so-called FID phase. That includes a lot. And we need at least 2 to 3 years to come up to a position to take a decision and start construction. So we need to complete all the engineering and permitting. We are in full contact with upstream producers because we need to get into contact, the final markets, with the producers of gas. Just to mention, and I would like to make a reference, and I would like to thank also for the support of Minister Steinis and Minister Hatzidakis and Minister Lakotritis. In November, we have signed a memorandum of understanding with NGL, and the idea is, as Mr. Riga said before, there is gas in the area, and gas that has to be exported, because we need also diversification, not only of prices, but diversification also of routes. So we are planning now the EastMed project to be connected to the Israeli grid in order to benefit of the Israeli grid to work as a gas aggregator, in order to fill in the gas that has to be needed in order to take FID. We're looking for partnerships. We will have to define. It is a complex project also from, since it starts, it involves Israel, Cyprus, Greece, Italy. Let's not take out of the picture Italy, because the EastMed pipeline ends to Greece, but then there is the Poseidon offshore pipeline that is already authorized, and that will connect the offshore section from the northwestern Greece area in Thesprotia, will connect the gas coming from the Eastern Mediterranean region to Italy, and then onwards to the Central European markets. So a lot of things have to be done. We are perfectly on track. As mentioned before, we have, according to schedule, awarded all the technical contracts, and we are ready, and the detailed marine survey. We are ready to award very soon the environmental and social impact assessment studies, both for the offshore and onshore section. And then we have already made a project execution plan that includes to perform all the in parallel necessary activities, covering financing, the regulatory framework, and in order to meet the market with the producers. Coming to the second part, I think that the involvement of Italy is something that has to be addressed at the political level. For sure, what we have all of us to recall and to register that yes, for the time being, Italy has not signed the trilateral intergovernmental agreement, but has made a very strong declaration of the full support it provides to the project.
Thank you. Moving on to how you, and anyone else who wants to take the Italy question, please go ahead, given that there have been kind of discussions or analysts who suggest that maybe the Southeastern European market might be an alternative should Italy decide not to move ahead with the project. And I know this is speculative for now. I just wanted your business perspective on whether that would be a big enough market for the EastMed pipeline to make sense to begin with. And anyone who wants to take it, please do in the next session. But I would like to also ask you about how you are adjusting your strategy amid the pandemic. And I know it's a short-term question, but how long do you think that, what is your projection for the recovery of the energy market and the price, I guess? And we have a technical question that I think it should be asked as well, how are you estimating resources available for export? If you can also answer that. Mr. Zomer, do you want to start?
Just You're talking about strategy or recovery. I think, first of all, as Matteo said, in quoting Minister Steinitz, that these are long-term projects. And I'll just quote Assistant Secretary Fannin, who said the clouds of COVID will disperse. And I think we're very bullish on these discoveries finding markets. And I think first of all, we can look close here. I know in Israel, if we see just immediate reduction in coal, it's an export project, and we'll be competing for that market, and we think that could happen now with very little investment. I think governments have a role to play here in transparency and making these and helping this recovery occur. But there certainly is going to be maybe a bit of a delay, and I don't think anyone really knows how long that's going to be. But I think if you look kind of over the next decade and even beyond, I think there was talk about natural gas being kind of that bridge fuel, and I think Assistant Secretary Fannin said it right about it just being that transitional fuel and the and being able to work with current fuel supplies and future technologies as well. And I think there's a question as to how long that bridge is going to be. And some of us might think it's going to be longer than others, but I think we all agree that that bridge needs to be sturdy. And I think that it will be, and I think that it will be for a long time through this recovery and beyond. And so, in the short term, I don't know how long these short-term fixes are going to be, but in the long term, we have a growing global population that's increasingly richer and needs energy, and natural gas is going to play a part of that. And so there's no question that both within the region and globally, Eastern Med gas will find a home. And so I think we're all going to continue to move forward with these projects at different paces, but we think that this gas will find a home.
Thank you. And if I might turn to Mr. Rigas for the same question and your business strategy amid the pandemic and going forward and export outlook for you. I know that Energean is on track to produce from the Karish field, and most of it is projected to go to the Israeli market for now. But I would like to have your outlook for longer term as well.
Thank you. Well, our strategy has not been affected by the pandemic. The pandemic has affected the way we work and the way we live, but all our operating sites and our main development project have not been affected by what is going on with the coronavirus situation. I can tell you that we completed all the drilling operations. We drilled 4 wells in Israel without any issues, and we are now laying a pipeline, a 24-inch pipeline that will connect the shore of Israel with the FPSO that we're building. We had made a proposal to Cyprus to continue laying the same pipeline and supply also Cyprus, but Cyprus elected not to listen to the proposal and elected to build an FPSO and import gas that could have been either produced from the country or imported from Israel. But that is something that Mr. Kassianidis can comment on later. So our strategy for the region is very simple. We move fast. We develop resources because we are totally committed to this region. And as an example, I will tell you that from the date that we got the approval by the Israeli government to develop Karish and Tanin, within 6 months from the approval of the development plan, we took the final investment decision for a $2 billion project. So when governments want to help and assist, and companies are committed to projects happen. Now, I'll give you a regional perspective of what is going on, because you asked before about the delays in exploration in Greece. Greece started its efforts to open the country to exploration The country was totally closed. We were the only company producing hydrocarbons, still are. And from 2015, we had new entries into the country. So Repsol from Spain, Total from France, Exxon from the US, all came to Greece to start exploring for hydrocarbons. Recently, we saw Total exit Block 2. We picked up their block for their own reasons. They decided to leave the block and focus on the southern part of Greece. What we're hearing is that there's going to be delays in drilling those wells because it's a frontier area that hasn't yet proven its success. But we are there and we're committed to continue the agenda and find the oil and gas that exists in the country. Moving further down to Cyprus, Cyprus has discovered, I remind everyone, gas with Aphrodite over a decade ago. And still Cyprus burns diesel. So people have to think why this happened. And Noble, that has made these great discoveries in the region and has developed Tamar and Leviathan with huge success in Israel, is there to develop resources. Look at Israel. Israel, 10 years ago, was a country relying 100% on coal and imported gas from Egypt. And with the support of the government, the commitment of the operators, both Noble and us that entered the market very recently, has turned into be self-sufficient and will be exporting gas. So the key message here is that you need to have governments that are committed, that support the operators, but you also need to have committed operators that want to develop projects and invest money. So our strategy is very simple. We're committed to the Mediterranean. We operate today in 8 countries. We are investing over $2 billion in the East Mediterranean right now. We are developing the only project that is under development at the moment in the region. And we want, of course, to continue supplying gas to Israel. We want to continue competing with Noble, Delek, and the other players in the country. And we want to export the vast amount of natural resources that exist in the region. That can happen either through the LNG terminals in Egypt, the East Med pipeline that, as we discussed before, we're part of through the agreement with TEPA. And since Turkey was discussed, when and if the markets open there, obviously that is a huge market for everyone. So we view the East Med as a key part of the energy world that will bring and supply of gas to the region. And of course, there's a lot of discussion about green energy and the transition to the green world. We were the first E&P company in the world to commit to be a net zero emitter by 2050. We did that in December of 2019. So we're totally committed to becoming a net zero greenhouse gas emission producer. And we're taking active steps for in the next 3 years to reduce our greenhouse emissions by 70% and then get to net zero later. But the world will need gas. I have no doubt that the world will need gas, the world will need hydrocarbons in the foreseeable future. So what we need to do is produce those hydrocarbons for the countries that we live and operate. And a prime example is Italy, and you mentioned Italy. We operate in Italy through the acquisition of the Edison E&P portfolio. Italy has decided to ban exploration and production of hydrocarbons and chose to import. So you have a country that can produce oil and gas, and I will focus on gas, but instead chooses to import this gas from other countries, but still burns gas. So in this crazy world that we live in, gas will play a major role. The winners are going to be the countries that understand this, that promote the development of gas resources, and find ways to export and serve the other countries. In my humble opinion, the losers are going to be those that just stay on the agenda of marketing and using nice words about the green environment, which is absolutely necessary for us to get to. There's no doubt about it. But until we get there, it is better for countries to produce their own gas rather than import it. And that is the strategy that we're following. We're trying to help governments produce their own resources.
Thank you. And before I turn the floor to Mr. Kassianidis, I would like to ask you if you think that the European Investment Bank decision to not invest going forward in such projects, does it undermine this prospects for gas that you are you're just describing, especially in regards to, of course, European Union countries?
Katerina, thanks for the question. Obviously, when we see big multilateral organizations like the EIB deciding to focus only on green investments, it is alarming. But I can tell you that in the last 3 years, we have raised over $4 billion from capital markets, equity and debt, from our IPO that we did in 2019 in London, on the London Stock Exchange. We're today the largest independent E&P listed on the London Stock Exchange. The debt that we raised for the project in Israel. So money is available. And what is happening today is funds are moving to tick all the boxes of an ESG, environment, social, and governance world, to make sure that they comply with an ESG strategy. But also funds and banks still want to make a return. So my message is very clear. You can find capital for projects, as proven by the fact that we are, and we're not a major company, we are an independent E&P company, and funding major projects in the region. So yes, it is alarming, but still projects get significant support.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Kassianidis, if I may turn to you, what is the rationale on the LNG terminal in Cyprus that Mr. Rigas also mentioned? And can you tell us about your strategy going forward and the progress that you've made in Cyprus? I understand that longer term, the prospect of a pipeline is also open, but please give us your take. Please unmute your mic.
Thank you for your question and the opportunity to give you an update of where we are. I will not go into a debate with Mr. Rigas about the offer that they have made. I think it's outside the scope of the forum, because also Noble has expressed interest and others have expressed interest as well. So, but I have to say that what I will agree with him is that Cyprus, for the last 10 years, has had to face the question of how to introduce gas in the energy mix of Cyprus and how to move Cyprus in the new gas era. I'm in the very happy position to announce that on Friday we gave the notice to proceed to the consortium. So the consortium has now acknowledged the notice to proceed, and the project is progressing. And they have a delivery timeline to deliver, let's say, gas to the Electricity Authority of Cyprus in July 2022. So hopefully we will not be discussing about the long-term ineffective plans of the Cyprus Republic for much longer, because actually we will be maybe the second project that is actually being implemented. The funding has been secured, and the definition and choice of how this project was manifested is clearly because we've had 40% grant from the European Union through the Connecting Europe facility, and that effectively dictated in a way that Cyprus needs to own and operate its own facilities, and that was done on the basis of the security of supply, and the security of supply was defined at the time through a project, which our project includes an FSRU, a jetty, a pipeline, and they're all, let's say, resources and will be owned by the government of Cyprus. The funding for the project is about 300 million euro. About 100 come from, let's say, the European Union as the grant. 43 has come from the Electricity Authority, who has bought equity in the infrastructure company. And then the rest, which with a very good ratio of debt to equity, and let's say with a very favorable terms from various European institutions, which will be something to discuss over the next coming period. The project is well financed and has actually now officially started. In terms of the impact of COVID-19 and so forth, the truth is that it has caused some delay, and this is the period where we have had the delay for mobilization and doing the different things, but now the project is on track and full steam ahead for completion. Then as soon as now that we have given the notice to proceed, Soon after, we'll follow with the invitation for the supply, for the second stage for the supply of gas. And I will mention we've had 22 interested companies, internationally interested companies that are participating in the tender that want to supply gas at very, very favorable terms for the Republic of Cyprus. To make it even more extent, I think depending on how the cycle works, if the prices remain low, it will be to the benefit of the consumer because we will end up having a lower electricity price with very competitive LNG prices. If the prices increase, then hopefully the FID will be taken between Noble and the Republic of Cyprus to develop Aphrodite, and then it is a different ball game altogether. Now, what happens is, as far as DEFA's plan and strategy is concerned in the future, we have been approached by different, let's say, entities and interested parties, economic operators for supplying gas in different forms and so forth. We have a project that has been vetted by the European Union, has been funded by the European Union. The government has shown the necessary commitment and decisiveness to implement what has been agreed with, and this is what we are implementing. Once the process starts, then we can enter discussion with others that want to help the whole process and help Cyprus move forward in a new era of gas and make the advantage. The current infrastructure is based on very minimum quantities that we're talking about less than 1 BCM, which is the expected Cyprus demands. But let's say once we have methanization, then we believe that the demand will increase, and that will open the opportunities for cooperation with other operators, including anyone who may have interest. So I think with that, I'll close.
Thank you so much, and I'm conscious of everyone's time again, but I want to close this discussion with your take on a provocative statement that I read on the Israeli press the other day, which was that the East Med gas party is over before it began. It's arguing that even if prices recover, the halt in development will close the window of opportunity. I guess they're not estimating, they're not projecting the strength in the gas market that Mr. Rigas is projecting. But Mr. Zomer, what is your take on this?
Well, first, if you live in Israel long enough, you know that the Israeli press is wrong way more often than they are right. And I don't know if that's unique to Israel, but certainly, I don't know where you read it, but I can only suspect. And I'll tell you, the Israeli press said that exports to Jordan would never happen, and that exports to Egypt would never happen. And that Leviathan would never be developed, and certainly wouldn't be developed on time. And so it was developed. It was developed on time, and exports to Jordan happen, and exports are happening, and exports to Egypt are happening, and they should not what did Mark Twain say? The rumors of my death have been highly exaggerated, and I think that is certainly true of that statement.
That's a good quote.
I think the Eastern Med discoveries and market have a bright future. We have governments in the region that are committed to making it happen, and we have more importantly investors who are willing to invest and move it forward. And I think ultimately, there's a demand to be met, and I think when you have all of those things, then success is inevitable. And so I think we all of us will share in that success, and I look forward to being part of that story as it unfolds.
Thank you. We have to close unless someone has something to add. Please raise your hand if you do. Otherwise, yes, Mr. Manolis, please. three presidents of the regional anthems reading in the background. Yes, please let me.
I would like to close by being optimistic, and I am really optimistic. Coming to our project, I need to add, I need to say that it fully covers both of the criteria set by the EU in terms of diversification of supply, sources of supply for Europe, but also for diversification of routes. So we're talking about the Levantine Basin, the Eastern Mediterranean region is an adjacent source to the EU. It will help to terminate isolation of Cyprus, and I firmly believe that one of the most important things is that will provide stability in the area.
Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today, and thank you for participating in this virtual 3+1, as I like to call it.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
If we may, we will continue. We will continue straight to our next panel with the presidents of the anthems of Greece, Cyprus, and Israel. We're already connected with Mr. Bakatselos in Athens, Haris Kakoulis in Cyprus, and Odette Rose in Israel. Welcome, gentlemen, and again, thank you so much for your contribution to this event. I think it's a great testament to one important aspect of the trilateral partnership, which is the cooperation between your three, the three anthems, your three organizations. I would like your membership's perspective on the energy opportunities for the three countries more generally, and your suggestions on ways to expand this collaboration in the region and with the US, as of course the anthems have this important mandate as well in their chamber. May I start with our host, Mr. Bakatselos?
First of all, let me start by saying a huge thank you, Katerina, for moderating what has been a very interesting discussion, I think. And perhaps I think I speak on behalf of everyone when I say that we should repeat this again in the future with the same format. And the other thing I wanted to say is I'm very happy to see my colleagues from Israel and Cyprus. Last time we met was in Israel in February. It seems like a decade, my friends, with all the things that have passed since then. Anyway, let me answer very briefly Katerina's question. I think that we have it's a common interest, and we particularly with this case, we are transitioning from other kinds of fuel to more clean energy. So the natural gas can be used as an interim fuel towards renewable energy, and I think there's a lot of interest also in the electrification of transportation. So with all that, what I'm trying to say is that the idea of setting up an energy center in the region is a fantastic idea. We can share technology, we can share expertise, and of course the involvement with the US is hugely important. It's valuable. Now we have, as the chamber, seen the benefits of this collaboration, and we have signed an MOU already between our three chambers with the idea of fostering and enhancing business relations between our countries. Let me just say one last thing about the Energy Center and our membership. We have presented this at a gathering of our Energy Committee, and most of the companies that are represented in the committee showed great interest in pursuing the creation of this center. And of course, Katerina, you know very well that we have signed an agreement with the Atlantic Council in pursuit of enhancing this incentive.
Mr. Mr. Rose for his take, and of course for our viewers as well. Mr. Bakatselos mentioned the EastMed Act and its idea of a U.S. EastMed Energy Center to share technology and expertise between the private sector and the academia as well, to focus on the region. That's just one of the ideas out there, but I thought it made perfect sense. So, Mr. Rose, to you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the organizers, for Nikos and his colleagues, and for the Atlantic Council for inviting us and for letting us be part of this. Our chamber has about 250 members. They make up about a third of the Israeli economy, so quite large companies. Noble Energy and Bini Zomer is a member of our board, of course. And we very happy to do all this cooperation. We started a year and a half ago, as Nikos mentioned, with signing the MOU. We held a session on cooperation in our recent February business summit, Israel-America Business Summit, and I was very happy to host my colleagues from Greece and from Cyprus. And we have a very strong energy committee that works on various energy issues. And I want to mention, because we talked all about energy this last 2 hours, I want to mention that we can cooperate on other areas, many other areas. And I just want to mention a few areas that we are working here in AmCham, Israel. One is we have a very strong pharma and bioconvergence committee that works on solutions, right now actually working on solutions for the COVID epidemic and many other health tech solutions. That's an area that I think we should do a lot more cooperation in this region. There's a lot of similarities, and we need to do more of that in the pharma and healthcare areas. Another one is in smart cities. Cities are now overwhelmed with the coronavirus crisis, and we need to find together solutions to help cities deal with the crisis. And I think there's a great area of cooperation here. And another one that we are very much focused on the last couple of years is how the future of the work is going to look with the advent of new technologies like AI, like automation, like robotics, how it's going to affect our jobs. Not our jobs, but perhaps in the chambers, but most of the jobs in the world. And we are doing a great project now with 10 Israeli ministries and other authorities, and the chamber and the academia and even the army. And we are looking at how to work together to get ready for this changing workplace that is changing very rapidly already now with the pandemic. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. And Mr. Kakoulis, over to you about energy prospects for cooperation. And since Mr. Rose took it to the future as well, another forms of cooperation, I should note the tourism, that tourism is also one sector that during the crisis of COVID-19 has been on the focus of all three countries to create a safe corridor for the citizens of its country to travel this summer. But please give us your take from Cyprus.
Thank you, Katerina, and thank you for giving me the opportunity and representing AmCham Cyprus to be part of this event. Thank you to Nikos Bakatselos and his team for taking the initiative and creating this event, which in my view is extremely successful. As AmCham Cyprus, our members and our board of directors are very excited about the energy prospects in the area and the opportunities unfolding. And basically, the 3+1 that has been mentioned before is something that we believe a lot, and we hope and we expect that the American presence and the engagement in the area will continue. So with respect to energy and how it can affect the area, I think we've heard a lot. We've heard about the progress being done so far, the analysis, as to when the final investment decision will be taken in 2 years, and the reasons. All these related to energy are very important in fostering an environment of growth, of economic growth in the area, which will fuel many sectors, including tourism, including technology and other areas that my other two esteemed colleagues mentioned. With respect to tourism in Cyprus, I believe that the Cyprus government here took some very correct and immediate measures to protect the population. And besides the fact that we protected the population here in Cyprus, we make sure that Cyprus as a destination of tourism is going to be one of the safest, not in the area, but in the world. So basically, we proved to our associates, to other countries or to other organizations that we cooperate, that we can be very serious in this kind of matters, and we can protect not only our citizens but also their citizens. So I believe now Cyprus has a good, setup to accept tourism from other countries, and we hope everything goes well. We hope that tourists dare to go out of their countries and enjoy the good weather, not only here in Cyprus but in Greece and Israel. The weather is pretty much the same, so I believe that it's hopefully it's time now for people to enjoy this time, and hopefully the businesses related and connected to tourism can exploit this. If I can also further add that besides energy, I believe that the three countries can further cooperate in the areas of healthcare and in the areas of education. Particularly education is something that if universities cooperate with each other, and if they have a framework that they can work together, you can have many innovations and new startups coming out of there. And this is how you create new business, and this is how eventually you can foster growth. The points that have been mentioned before about renewable energy, I believe these are very good areas, and the plan of Israel to in the future to focus to the 70 versus 30%. It's extremely important. I believe the European Union is trying to do similar, has similar targets, maybe not at that point, but I think similar. So these would trigger eventually other, similar industries to grow, like I guess the storage of energy and other similar areas. So I am optimistic about what we are going to face in the future, and hope the energy sector grows and pushes further the growth in the area.
Well, today we certainly saw the value added of your regional expertise and cooperation in bringing this event together. And I have to say, before I turn it to Nicholas to close the session, I'm grateful for the fact that dinner in the Eastern Mediterranean is later than in North America, because we can still have you with us, and it wouldn't necessarily work the other way around. So I'm grateful for your time today, and thank you for participating and contributing to making this event. Nicola, over to you.
Katerina, thank you. I would like to mention this. Really made an impression on me when I visited Tel Aviv in February, and it relates to the future as well. It's not about the kind of businesses and the know-how that we can exchange between our countries, but it's also about the mentality. I was really surprised by what was going on in Tel Aviv. This startup nation that is Israel was fantastic. And I think that if we can learn from them, we can grow, we can evolve, we can become better. I'd like to thank everybody that took part in today's digital conversation. Katerina, primarily you spent 2 hours moderating this very, very interesting debate. And I hope, as I said before, that we will be able to repeat it. I would like to thank the team here at AMCHA, Iles Petunias, our managing director, and Nagilki, who was also involved in preparing the discussion. And thank everybody who attended. I think we had at some point 200 concurrent viewers. So a success. Well done, Katerina. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done, Katerina.
Thank you for everything.